being pressured, they just give in. So they say, "Oh, what am I suffering for this? What a couple $1,000? Okay, yes, I'm in. Okay, I agree. Fine. Where should I sign? Just get rid of this nonsense." Same thing is happening here, but even in a worse situation. That all the Zelensky and Europeans, and they are being aware of Trump's vindictiveness. And so they're playing along, they help him to create. Yes, Zelensky says, yes, it's a very important negotiation. It's so important. It's never happened before. It's unique. It's this, and Europeans are trying to help this. Putin, he is numb, or he's talking to Trump for hours, but nobody's telling us what they're talking for hours. It's the
So,
same thing. It's a late night transactions. That's what's happening right now. But
but
it's
but
not
Zelensky comes from show business where everybody's full of shit, and so has decades of experience with being bullshit. So um, that's in his favor. What's not in his favor is how he's been treated by Trump. So Trump flies to Putin. They meet in Alaska. Trump rolls out a red carpet and greets Putin as he comes off the plane. Zelensky goes to Trump, goes to Mar-a-Lago, flies in, lands. No red carpet. Nobody from the White House. The only people greeting him are his own delegation. So right there, you can tell the difference between, you can tell which side frickin' Trump is on.
because there is no doubts. He is not a third party negotiator. He is clearly negotiating on behalf of Putin. He is Putin's puppy. He is Putin's little doggy. And this is exactly what's happening right now. And it's so clear. There's no even guess. Oh, so he's preferring Putin. Maybe he's preferring Zelensky. No, it's not even a guess. He's doing Putin's job, and that's why this show still keep going. Putin, he hasn't yielded even 1 millimeter for all these 11 and a half months of 2025. It's soon be 12 months. He hasn't yielded nothing. And all these negotiations, it's in business, it's very, very bad practice when you are discussing, let's say, you're negotiating some price for something. So the one side wants a price, let's see, $200,000. You're offering $160,000. So you're banging and banging, and then nothing happens. So you say, okay, I'll offer $170,000. The other side wouldn't move. It's still staying at 200. So now you're moving from 175 to 170. You're moving to 180. No response for the other side. So essentially, the first side either has to realize that the other side will not move and just stop there. Essentially, they're bidding against themselves. There is no side to negotiate with because the other side is not moving anywhere. So you have to stop these so-called negotiations and just walk away. This way, maybe the other side, a day or two later, maybe they will lower the price. Maybe not. Depends how eager they are to sell. But bidding against yourself, it's a worse strategy in negotiations. In any business transaction, let's say you're negotiating, selling your services to somebody, and you want certain price, and the other side wants a different price, and not moving anywhere. You're bidding against yourself. You are a loser. Just take your losses and walk away.
But another thing that's not moving, Putin's not moving, but neither are the borders of the invasion. Russia isn't, as far as I know, taking any more land. They've held Ukraine has held Russia in place for a year or more, right? They're not grabbing more land. The one reason that Zelensky would have to make a bad deal is that it's a better deal than it would be a year from now when Russia has taken more of Ukraine, except that's not happening.
It's not happening. There is no reason for Ukraine going for this so-called peace deal except Donald Trump's factor. Now, Donald Trump's factor, I would be highly critical that for so intense peace negotiations, Trump wouldn't even iota to stop Russian bombardments of civilians in Ukraine. It's going every night, all the time. And Trump not only unable to stop, he's not even willing to stop it. He's not even saying to Putin, you know what? We are negotiating right now. While we are negotiating, just stop this stupid bombardment. You are not, it doesn't help your front lines. You're just killing defenseless civilians, children, women. Stop it for now. No, he's not saying that. He doesn't want to upset his friend Vladimir Putin. No, okay, continue. In fact, this bombardment helped Trump because the Ukrainians, maybe they will cave in, maybe they say, you know, hell with that, they're bombarding. Because if it wouldn't be for bombardment, I don't think that Ukraine would be even at the table to negotiate anything, because Russians are losing about 1,500 people a day. So how many people they have to keep losing every single day? So let's hope that these negotiations will stop, but they will not stop until 20th of January, because that's exactly 1 year since inauguration, and he wants to show the grandiose. He started with peace in 24 hours. Okay, it's not 24 hours, it's now 12 months. It's not even 12 months, it's something else, but he's working on it and he's pushing it and he's doing everything possible and possible. So he's a real peace creator. And you know that negotiations, the nomination for Nobel's Peace Prize, they are actually concluding in January of each year. So Trump must have that huge so-called peace negotiations going, even if unsuccessful, but going on until the end of January. And at the end of January, once nomination is closing, then he'll say, okay, hell with you, I cannot create any peace there, just go away, I don't want to hear about it anymore, and so on. That's my reading of the situation.
Trump is a little bit more transparent this time around as president, because he's lost his ability. He's more blatant. He's got more power. He's surrounded by more people who just go along with everything, and he's probably a little sicker and dumber. Now he used to have makeup on the back of his right hand. Now he's got makeup on the back of both hands to cover up bruising. He's blatantly making crypto deals that have increased his family's net worth $3.5 billion in the past year. He's got to cover try to scramble away from the Epstein stuff. All this makes him a less effective bullshitter.
Yeah, that's true.
If you tie in Ukraine, well, I mean, he took a 1 o'clock. He took a phone call before he negotiated with. He took a phone call from Putin, then when negotiated with Zelensky, which tells you that he's negotiating on behalf of Putin and whatever Putin said. But my question is, how did we come to this point? And that brings me back to the P tapes. Remember we talked. Remember way back when they talked about Putin supposedly has some P tapes. Those P tapes, I think, are not P tapes, but I think they tie into this whole Epstein stuff, because there's a lot more coming out with this Epstein stuff. And I think Putin has a lot of information there that he has on Trump. And that could be a possibility of why he's so adamantly negotiating on behalf of his friend, Vladimir Putin.
Very possible. Very possible.
But it's only a possibility. What Republicans like to argue is that the Democrats paid for the Russia dossier on Trump and that it's full of lies. And they intentionally misrepresent what the Russia dossier was, which was various people, first the Republicans and then the Democrats, hired a Brit ex-spy to assemble all the Oppo research, all the rumors about Trump into one document, a document that nobody ever claimed was 100% true or even 50% true. It's just Oppo research. These are the things that might be true, that could be, and the craziest claim in the whole Russia dossier was the P tapes that Trump went to Moscow. Trump was given the bedroom that Obama had stayed in at the official Moscow hotel for foreign dignitaries, and he hired 2 prostitutes to come in and piss all over the bed that Obama had slept in, and that there was a tape of this. And this was the craziest claim and Jacoby brought it up. And yeah, there's a possibility it's true. There's a possibility, but it's.
I don't think it's about that. I think the tapes are something different. I think the tapes tie Trump a lot more with Epstein than just him hiring that and have urination on bed stuff. No, I think
this is how it works. Freaking Russia looks at America, looks at England, looks at people in those countries, and is like, they have files on all these celebrities and politicians in case it turns out to be useful later. It's called compromise, which is compromising material. So in 2010, in 2005, they started, maybe 2000, as soon as Trump starts buying anyway, they've got a file on him. And they're like, this guy's an idiot. Let's just stand, maybe something will happen with him. And that bet on Trump came in. He became president after Moscow's been assembling compromat on him for 15, 20 years. And Putin is overjoyed. Because he's got a thick ass file.
Well, I think yes, he has a file on Trump. However, I think he also has a file on many of the people that were there with Epstein, because there's a huge list of players, or there's a huge number of players that dealt with Jeffrey Epstein that also were overseas. If you take Prince Andrew, for example, Prince Andrew probably traveled around that area. We all know that Russia has a huge network of individuals, a huge network of spies, and that do actually hack into. They actually had a lead in terms of hacking into technologies and so on and so forth. That was what they do: the espionage, all the spying stuff. And with the amount of people that dealt with Jeffrey Epstein, this is why I think there's a lot more to Trump than him being a client or him being a part of, because the way he's so adamantly against the files, we already know he's been best friends with Jeffrey Epstein. So and we know that Jeffrey Epstein did deal with financing for individuals. So did Epstein and Trump work together? Were they partners in the situation? Did he have some play there? Is this file, this quote unquote P tape, just another piece of the giant file that Putin has on Trump? And it just so happened that Trump became leader of the free world, and now he has a huge weight on his shoulders that he must do the bidding of Putin, because there's more to. Again, I think there's a lot more that we're missing and that we don't see, and there's more to this Ukraine-Russia situation. Same thing with the Israel Palestine situation, which you notice has gone off the front page after Trump announced this whole thing, even though there's still bombings and everything else going on. Same thing with was it Rwanda? That's basically everywhere he said, and he went and had peace deals. All of them have fallen apart. There's still death and killing happening everywhere. So there's a lot happening. This Venezuela situation. What's truly going on in Venezuela? Is it an oil takeover? Is it because it's a regime change? Definitely. It's not about drugs. This has nothing to do with drugs. So there's just a lot going on, and I think there's a pivotal piece, and that piece is Trump sitting in the middle. And I know Putin has a lot on him. That's why he can do whatever. Sasha points out, yeah, he's just bombing.
Well,
He
there's
doesn't care
more. There's
whatever he
more.
wants.
Trump likes Putin. Trump has tried to do business deals with Putin. 20 years ago, he was trying to get Trump Tower Moscow built, and he might want to do that after he's president. Trump has made hundreds of millions of dollars from Russian oligarchs buying properties, buying apartments, condos in Trump properties.
Could Venezuela be another quote unquote Trump property that he hands over to the Russian oligarchs? Could, because that's what he already tried to do with Gaza, because remember, he already talked about ethnically cleansing Gaza to go ahead and put in Trump hotels. That's why I put out that AI video about doing that. So there's a lot. Again, there's more to this situation.
Well, one more thing is, I mentioned earlier, in his Trump's first administration, there were competent people, that not all of them, not even most of them, but competent people who knew what they were doing, like the Secretary of State, the former CEO of Exxon, what's his face, who left after a year because he was disgusted. There's nobody competent left in Trump's administration. Maybe Marco Rubio's a little competent, but he just kisses ass all the time. There's nobody left who can focus Trump's scattered thoughts into a coherent policy on anything. So Trump just like blows in the wind, and the last person who talked to him is who he follows.
It's not about coherency or anything. It's about loyalty. That's why he picked these people. The individuals that you're talking about before, Bill Barr and everybody else, he felt they weren't loyal to him. And so he did not pick them again. His qualification wasn't anything about what they can do. Marco Rubio just wanted power. So, hey, you know what? If you're going to be loyal to me, I'm going to give you power. That's all Trump cared about this time around. And even in the first time around, Trump being not a politician and trying to learn things, he hired people who he felt knew things. Well, he didn't have to do that anymore. He can do whatever he wants to because he hired people who are loyal to him. And loyalty was the only qualification this time. RFK has no clue about what he's doing. But you know what? He's loyal to Trump, and Trump will go ahead and do whatever. The lady he just put in charge of what's that? Who was bringing up all the different lawsuits. She had no qualifications. She had never held a case, but you know what? She's loyal. The lady who just there's another lady he just hired that's supposed to dealing with immigration issues or something. I got to look it up again. He just hired another lady who just ran a coffee shop.
He's hired a bunch of. We've got numbers coming up. Sasha can tell us when the numbers come up, because today we got 2 more days left in 2025, and then in early January we should get new inflation numbers, new unemployment numbers, and eventually within a month or so we will get growth numbers for the fourth quarter of this year. Now, they said that the U.S. had 4.3% annualized economic growth in the third quarter, but I'm not sure we can trust those numbers. That's a great number. I'm not sure if we can trust those numbers anymore. And
it's not, Rick, it's not a question of trusting this or other numbers. It's understanding and analyzing these numbers. That most of this GDP story are the artificial intelligence stuff where a group of companies, including Meta, Microsoft, all these huge spenders, they're spending billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars buying products from NVIDIA and others to build the so-called super centers. and data centers, and all that basically has nothing to do with the real economy. Absolutely nothing. So therefore, you can see 4.3%, you can see 8.3%. What does it tell you about general economy, the Main Street economy? It has nothing to do with the real economy at all. Nothing.
And Main Street, everybody in America feels desperate. Everybody, 99% of Americans feel insecure, which we have some of the highest insecurity when they survey insecurity. People feel more, very high, historically, I think, high numbers. And yeah, there are 7, I think, big AI companies. They have to continue to be considered growth companies so they can have PE ratios of 50 and 70. And once people realize that, no, they're not growth companies, that the money is not going to be coming to them is not going to be, increasing exponentially, and they become considered normal companies, then their PEs drop to 20 or 15, and they lose 70% of their value in the stock market.
Well, it's very difficult to recognize all this value of today's stock market. It's very difficult. It's very iffy. Look at this, for example, so-called quantum computing stocks. It's almost like a trap for investors buying the stocks and seeing them going down almost every single day. So people say, okay, so I bought maybe at higher price, it will go down and then it will start recovery. What recovery? Based on what? Most of them have no revenue, or they have very little revenue and no price per earning ratio available. So they're basically, it's buying a story where, yes, I'm a fool, but there is even a bigger fool who will buy it from me at some point. So it's a bigger fool's theory. That's really all what it is. But I'm afraid that it can go to other stocks, not just quantum computing, but many other high-tech stocks, and maybe even not only high-tech stocks, but maybe other stocks as well. So this is a pretty grim situation. Now, a few words about the peace negotiations. There are now proposals to create at least two different teams who will tackle one question, then yet another team will tackle another question, and I don't know who is going to fly where and when and so on. So there is a giant activity. It's all this midnight real estate transactions. That's all what it is. There's no substance. There's absolutely nothing. And people are just going along with that. Zelensky, especially Europeans as well, just to, okay, he wants that. Okay, Trump will help you with that. Putin actually is not eager to help Trump at all. There is no single statement from Putin or his government with okay, we agree with this and that, but we disagree with this or that. There is no comments. There is nothing. So the only comments everybody making, it was a great meeting. It was a fantastic meeting, and that's all what we hear. There's no substance.
You call it a midnight real estate transaction, but it's also similar to buying a car or buying timeshare, where you go in there and you've been in there an hour and a half, and you're like, I don't know. And then I go, can you do anything for me? And the guy's like, I don't know, let me go get my manager. And then they bring in a new guy, and they're like, this deal, we can only offer it to you now. Like, you walk away from this deal today, we can't give it to you again. And then you're like, I don't know. Then they bring in a third person.
Normally, this so-called timeshare transaction, they are offering for you some kind of a coupon, let's say a dinner for two in a nice restaurant. Mm-hmm. So, okay, you're arriving. Okay, this is the worst case scenario for an hour and a half. We're going to spend there and listen to bullshit or so on. But then we will get a coupon for a nice dinner for two in a nice restaurant. But guess what? You don't get that coupon up front. You have to listen to all the bullshit. And then you still will not get that coupon before you will sign on a dotted line that you're buying a week or 2 weeks or a half day or at least something. So something they will squeeze your credit card for at least some money, even $10, but most likely it will be $1,000 or so on. So this is another hard. I don't know if Mark, you still have that show, the what is it?
Yeah, we still have the timeshare show. Yeah, the timeshare solution or surrender. It airs on Mondays. They're actually in a rerun season, like a lot of our shows have been, and everything like that. But they'll be coming back in January. It'll be a hour show still, but it'll be 30 minutes of the conversation around timeshares, and then they'll do 30 minutes of infomercials and things along those lines. But yeah, the show does still exist.
Oh, there's one more thing that this is like. This is like joining Scientology. If you walk down the street, down Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles, you might be approached by an attractive young person who says, do you want to take a quick test and learn more about yourself and how you can be a more effective person? And I've done it twice because I don't give a shit. I'll go in there and I'll take the test, and it's a short personality test. And then they go, hold on, and then we're going to grade your test. And they come back with a chart, and they say, here's your personality with regards to how you address the world. And they show you a thing, and they go, you're good here, you're bad here, you're good here, and would you like to be good across the board? Would you like to be the best possible version of yourself? And then you need to start working with us. They've got these, e-meters and all this technology, according to Scientology, that to help you be better. And at that point, that's where I say, no, thank you. I'm happy being all fucked up. And then they get mad. And they're like, yeah, but you're going to be fucked up your whole life. And you have a little argument, then you leave. But some people don't leave. Some people are like, well, you're right. And then they get sucked into, they become Scientologists.
Well, anyway, we still will have tomorrow Ukrainian show at 11 o'clock. And we'll discuss all the latest information, what's available on that. And that will be our last Ukrainian show for this year. And we'll have also Modern Investing at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. And so that will present our show for this year. Anyway, thank you very much. I have to go now. Bye-bye.
No problem. Yeah. We go a little bit over because I did start late and everything like that. But Rick, if you would just look at, I know you look at the Drudge Report and see what some of the news items are, since I didn't get a chance to be in this brief.
The main headline, the one in the biggest print, is kind of a dumb headline. It says Trump's bruises spread. And I already brought it up, where Trump, for a guy who's been wearing makeup for 30 years, he's really bad at matching makeup. So he's got these bruises on the back of his right hand. They slap a bunch of foundation, like a flesh-colored makeup over it, except it doesn't match. It looks like, when somebody graffitis a building, then they paint it over and they don't get the color right. Same deal. But now they're painting the back of his left hand too, which means he's got more bruises, and he's got cankles, swollen ankles. So people are wondering what's going on. What's going on? I mean, at the very least, is he's an old man who's not in the best of shape, and this probably reflects under a lot of stress. And it probably, he wasn't super competent in the first place, and he's less competent now. What else? Frickin' MTG. I'm just looking at Trump. Says she was a schmuck to believe in MAGA and Trump. She was like, I was just so naive. There's a lot of chatter that's unnecessary. It just fills time on shows like this and on real shows like the TV news about who's going to be the Republican presidential nominee in 2028. And JD
they're talking about JD Vance. They're talking about Rubio. They're even talking about JD Vance possibly dissing his wife and getting with Charlie Kirk's wife and everything like that to make him more palatable to the public. But I did because I was at an event and the person actually had a button with Gavin Newsom. So it does look like Gavin Newsom. I even had support here in Durham, North Carolina, and everything because we had an event
It's
on.
still 3 years till the election, and it's way too soon. But yeah, there have been surveys that show that Newsom's in a better position among the general voters than Vance. Vance, reads as creepy, but Vance among Republicans has 48% support versus 18 support for Rubio. But again, it's way too
Well,
soon.
it might not be too early because I've raised it on this show, and I'd love to hear both you and Jacoby's thoughts. If the health concerns are as bad as some people are painting them to be, is it possible that Trump, even though he's definitely got some ego, will step down or be forced out and everything like that, and that J.D. Vance would be running as an incumbent? So, do we think that Trump in his second term will make it all the way through the term?
Maybe not, and it would be smart for the Republicans to get J.D. Vance in there as president the same way 4 years ago. It would have been smart at some point. It would have been kind of radical for Biden to say, I promise to be a one-term president. I'm experiencing some health challenges of my own. Let's have Harris be president for 2 years. That would have put her in a stronger position. And Trump is, we don't know everything about Trump because they hide, they hid information about Biden, but they're hiding even more medical information about Trump. Trump is probably more debilitated than Biden was. And it would probably be smart to get Vance in there being president for a couple years, showing he's not a complete shit show, not a complete creep, so he could win over some of the independents. There's definitely an electoral advantage in having been president.
I disagree that Vance is not a creep. He is actually less liked than Trump in many, many circles. The only reason Vance has any following is because Erica Kirk, who people keep trying to say that those two are trying to date now, even though JD Vance is married. It's trying to put Turning Point USA behind JD Vance. He isn't liked at all. And it's the diehards that like him. The independents, everybody else, nobody really likes JD Vance. He just
all right. But let's talk about one of the creepiest presidents we ever had was Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was VP for 8 years under Eisenhower, narrowly lost in 1960 to RFK, who was a good-looking, charming guy. Nixon was famously sweaty and angry, but Nixon loses in 60, comes back in 68. But the nation had another 8 years to get used to Nixon. They voted him in to become president in 68 and again in 72. You get the country used to Vance. Get more exposure for him in doing important government stuff instead of just saying creepy shit on Twitter. Then maybe the country gets used to him.
The problem that's like saying throw in Dan Quayle. Dan Quayle's never getting over the potato issue. So JD Vance is not getting over the couch issue. He's not getting over any of the creepiness. What JD Vance's job is right now is what he's doing. He's campaigning for 2028 right now. That's why he put out that ad with him supposedly with the military, the whole fake ad that he's running around with the military trying to do the training. No, JD, you're not. You're just standing there. Everybody knows it. Nobody likes JD Vance. And no matter how much he puts his name out there, the more he's out there, the less he's liked because he doesn't have the gravitas that people bought into with Trump. And that's where JD Vance is out on. Not only that, but everybody can see and smell the desperation for power that he has. because you don't just switch up calling somebody Hitler to saying, hey, he's the greatest president since sliced bread. That's another issue that he has to deal with. There are just so many problems with his character that independents do not like. And that's where
I would still argue that every problem Vance has, Nixon had, and Nixon eventually.
But Vance isn't Nixon. Trump is Nixon. Nixon had gravitas and a draw, and that's why people voted for Nixon at the time. Vance doesn't have gravitas. This is why he was never even close to being a president before. Nobody liked him as he was when he was on TV. He was just not liked. So throwing him out there to get people used to him isn't helping, because people want the MAGA wing. They want Trump. They like Trump. They like because he does stuff. JD Vance, when he goes and talks, people don't care about it. And people, when he made another huge mistake when he was at the Turning Point USA thing, which was no more than which turned out to be a racist rally in the first place. When JD Vance goes up and says he does the same talking point as a white supremacist talking point, which is you don't have to apologize about being white anymore. That came from a actual white supremacist 4chan talking point. That is what has been parroted. So JD Vance, the more he's out there, the more he makes missteps, the more he sounds desperate for power. He is not liked, and independents don't like him. And the more he's seen, the less they like of him. So I don't see him for like 2 years or 3 years campaigning and turning people towards him.
All right. Well, okay. So if he keeps failing, there's Rubio. Rubio reads as a nice guy, as the guy who's not a piece of shit in all this. Will that be sufficient?
I don't think Rubio would have a shot either, because I don't think anybody in this administration is going to have that great of a shot, because right now Trump is going to that stain is going to be on people, and especially like a Rubio's supposed to be this, dealing with Venezuela and all this other stuff. Well, he's just letting Trump bomb and do whatever he wants to, so people are going to hold that against him. I think people outside of it, I think honestly, if a Nikki Haley comes back around, that can be dangerous. However, Nikki Haley, because she seemed to just do nothing, that is going to be a problem for her. There are others out there. Honestly,
but again, all this is it's still 3 years, 2.5 years from now. But the immediate thing, I want to see what the numbers are in early January, a week from now. We'll see if they even release numbers. The numbers for October were so bad they didn't even release them for inflation and unemployment. So what are they going to do this time around?
They're going to release some numbers that they agree with. So they're not going to be very trustworthy numbers. And then you're throwing in the new Fed chair that Trump wants to throw in there. So you're going to have the whole deck stacked that's going to say stuff Trump likes. Trump is already talking about, where he's pushing different news organizations that if the coverage is bad of him, he's going to pull their licenses. He's already trying to weigh heavily on and CBS 60 Minutes pulled that article about the immigration policy, about what's going on with immigration based on what Trump wanted. So, I mean, we're going to have a lot going on over the next year. And I think a lot, again, independents right now are where it is. Democrats are not going to vote for anything Trump is. They're going to vote for a Democrat, regardless of how low the numbers are. They're going to vote for a Democrat because of Trump. More independents are pushing towards, hey, there needs to be a check there. And that's again why I don't think anybody in this administration has the opportunity to become a president. Somebody outside of the administration that could have ties to Trump in some way, but they're just not seen as being a part of the administration. That's somebody who has a possibility. Anybody with gravitas that can, draw a crowd, because that's what's selling right now. I mean, if you take a populist like Mamdani, the reason he won, honestly, he did have that populist loud, I'm going to do something message. People want change. Trump wasn't change. Trump was a disaster, and that's what people are getting upset about. So they're going to be Republicans that will never vote for Democrat. But again, they're not going to vote for Trump just because they see him as a disaster.
So Biden was less of a disaster than Trump.
But he wasn't bombastic. He wasn't bombastic and saying, I'm doing this.
Economically, I mean, you had 9% inflation during the second year of Biden's presidency. At the same time, he pulled out of Afghanistan. Those two things he never recovered from. But overall, the last 2 years of his presidency, the economy was pretty good, but people did not view it that way. The media did not view it that way. And people voted for change. And I think you're right. I think that people will vote for change again.
Because look at, I mean, what you just stated was perfect. Yeah, Biden had 9% inflation, unemployment was high, but they're giving they're giving Trump a lifeline because it was COVID, but they're not giving the same for Biden, who came in during COVID, because that's what drove up all that stuff. Or a lot of
that drove up that and drove up a lot of that. So speaking of disasters and everything like that, I just have a question for both of you on that same regards, which is the vice president candidate for Kamala is in hot water because of the Somali fraud case. So is this going to cost Walz his term, or are we going to have that Lindell guy as the governor of Minnesota, who is the My Pillow guy?
No, the Lindell guy. Mike Lindell is completely insane. He's a former drug addict. I mean, he might be schizophrenic.
Nobody's voting for Mike Lindell.
But there is a true scandal in Minnesota. A bunch of, but it's hard to sort through the bullshit. But I guess there have been a bunch of Somalis doing childcare fraud to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. They have been prosecuting this for years, but I guess ineffectively. And the Republicans are going crazy with it because it perfectly lines up with their racist, propaganda.
That's it. I think honestly, what you did, that right there is why they're using it exactly. But again, that right there also is why they're losing independence. Because going into next year, people got upset. I think a big shift in mindsets began earlier this year, especially because once the Epstein cracks started happening, because they're still going on, and everybody in this administration are seen as protecting pedophiles now. Once those cracks happen, people stopped buying into a lot of the crap that Trump was saying. Because really, people bought into Trump, regardless of whatever he said. If you ever listen, I mean, if you try and listen to the words that he says, they're just ridiculous. They're nonsensical. He speaks gibberish. When he's talking about women's panties, what are you talking about, dude? So I think those cracks have formed, and because of that, these independents that have shifted his way, the Hispanic individuals, the Hispanic community has shifted away from him because of immigration. You now have other people in MAGA that are becoming fractured over the Epstein files, because that's all you brought those people in for votes in the first place. Now people in, for example, North Carolina are getting upset at him because he's now not allowing disaster relief. Before the Epstein cracks, people were defending it more. Now, because of the Epstein cracks, people are upset about it in Western North Carolina. So you have these fissures that are coming, these cracks and fissures. So people are tired of being mean. Charlie Kirk happened. I don't wish any bad on anybody, but and so I feel bad for what happened to him. But for people who loved Charlie Kirk, that was a shift as well. Because again, when that happened and those fissures with Epstein, now people are getting tired of it all the time.
So with Biden, his popularity was steady at about 50%. Then he pulled us out of Afghanistan. It dropped 8-10%, stayed there, even kept dropping further. People's trust in Biden was broken by the Afghanistan thing, never could recover. Now we'll see if Epstein breaks Trump in a similar way.
Well, you had Epstein, and again, now you have Charlie Kirk. You also have, because if you take a look, people were upset that they lowered the flags in Charlie Kirk, but didn't lower the flags for the young lady in Minnesota who was assassinated.
Melissa, Hoffman,
Yep.
or something.
Melissa Hoffman. Didn't lower the flags for her. Didn't lower the flags just recently. Remember, individuals were killed. So he's picking and choosing, and that's upsetting people. And that never happened before. So now with people getting more and more upset at particular things, again, people are going to get, the more they're upset, then if they understand that you don't have to support Trump. And not supporting Trump doesn't make you a Democrat. You can still support Republicans, but not supporting Trump, and that's where that shift is starting to happen.
So what we're going to see in the next 2 months, whether this is a permanent break in belief in Trump, or whether he can, because right now his approval is still a steady declining glide path. You don't have that break that Biden had.
Well, because remember, he wanted to sue polls that really didn't show it. And so my guess is a lot of the polls, depending on where they're pulling the information from, is it more heavily Republican? Because if it's more heavily Republican or more heavily independent, because if it's that again, you're not going to get, I don't think you're going to get a giant drop for Trump. I think you're going to get a steady decline because he has trained a lot of people in the country that he is this golden child. He can do everything. He's the greatest of the greatest. That's why he always says that. Now, because people are starting to hear, "Oh, I'm the least racist," but yet he's only allowing white Afrikaners to come in. I'm against all wars. Yeah, you're starting a war with Nigeria. You're starting a war with Venezuela. You're starting wars all over. So people are starting to see that there's going to be a steady drop off. Because
I got to scoot out of here, but.
Yeah, we're all getting ready to get out of here. So we got a full hour or almost an hour and everything like that. But good conversation. We'll be back on tomorrow, and then we'll be got 2 more days of 2025, so we can reflect on 2025 on tomorrow and Wednesday. So 2026 is just around the corner and everything like that. So it'll be interesting to see what news 2026 brings us and all along those lines. So yeah, we'll get ready to wrap up, and I hope you see you gentlemen and possibly Sharif and Sasha and maybe even Nick on tomorrow and see who else gets invited or decides to pop in as well. But it's always a good conversation, and it's time for us to bounce on out of here.
Nice to see you all.
Good to see you too.